You are Locked On Bulls Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Chicago on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Bulls Postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. Joe George here with you as always. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as we're talking about a Bulls win 129-121 over the Denver Nuggets. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started today. A surprising win for the Bulls. I think that's the way I would describe today's win. A stunning win also. Both those words work because, look, Denver had their way with the Bulls in a lot of this game, but they played some good basketball. Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball, Nikola Vucevic, and Patrick Williams, who we will also discuss in the second segment of the show. Didn't start this game. Billy Donovan finally pulls the trigger, puts Patrick Williams on the bench. He responds with a really good game, and then we'll wrap up the show as we've been doing all of these recent ones with the best and worst moments of tonight's game for the Chicago Bulls. But I put this game, it is a surprising win because if you look at what happened in this game, look, the Bulls all season have been a team in which you're watching these broadcasts, you're listening to things that Adam Amin, little nuggets that was not intentional, he gives you during the broadcast, and there's always something. There's always something, it feels like. Christian Braun, season high points tonight. He was balling for the Nuggets. But look, the Denver Nuggets in this game, in the first quarter, have the most points in a quarter of any team this entire season in any quarter in the paint. It's the most points in any quarter, the entire season of any team in the entire league. 28 points in the paint. They end up with 50 points in the paint in the first half. So they're just dominating you. And look, you have the best player on the planet you're facing him. So you're facing, obviously, a super tough matchup. Like, no one's equipped to guard Nikola Jokic, but he's just having his way with you in this game. But the Bulls, they battled tough in this one. I give them a lot of credit for everything that's gone wrong with this team. You know, this is a game where you could kind of roll over and die, and you know, when you're down by 12 points, let the Nuggets run away with this thing. Hell, the Bulls were up by 10 at one point, and you know, it got tight there towards the end, but they could have also let Denver just totally come back and change everything. This was a good win. I mean, this is one of those wins where it's like, it's a good win, even though, like, in the grand scheme of things, like, I don't know what it matters, but I think I liked a lot of what we saw, and we'll talk more about it in the second segment, but benching Patrick Williams, I think, is such a great thing, and then to see him respond in that way, and there is a certain thing about certain guys in the league and in basketball in general, and in sports in general, I guess, about, like, being the guy on the floor. Maybe he's just more comfortable with the second unit. Like, maybe he's just more, that's just who he's meant to be. It's just to be the best player on the court with the second group of guys that come in, and he's going to be more aggressive, offensively, defensively, rebounding. Maybe shouldn't have taken this long to do it. 47 games or whatever it is into the season. Maybe you shouldn't have waited so long. Great point here by Muhammad in the chat right away. Did you see Lonzo Ball take control of the offense at the end? Absolutely. Like, that's why, we get a bunch of trade rumors about Lonzo Ball today that came out, but when he's on this team, that's why teams are interested in Lonzo, because you can see now he's healthy, he's playing great basketball, he's shooting the lights out. I mean, he's crushing threes. He had the one that got overturned to a two-pointer, but that stretch there is really what probably propelled the Bulls into victory, I would say, in this game, even everything else that was good about it. But Lonzo just took control of this game, and that's it's really the reason why they won, that and what the bench did. The Nuggets have had to make a lot of tough decisions since they won the championship. They let a lot of guys walk that are really good basketball players because they couldn't pay them, and that's what happens when you win championships. But the Bulls outscored the Nuggets bench 41-10 tonight. So your bench unit just absolutely throttled them. You started the third quarter and the fourth quarter on a 13-0 run. You closed the gap in the second quarter because of that, because of your bench unit. They played fantastic basketball in this game. We saw Ayo, who I know started this game, but hitting clutch threes in this game. And I really like the starting group as well. Like, yeah, you're going to get killed in the paint when you're starting four guards. Like, kind of obvious, right? But I really like the starting group as it was. That Billy Donovan ran out there in this game. Because if you're not going to rebound well, like Patrick Williams hasn't this season, then just put a bunch of small guys out there because you're not losing anything. So what are you adding? You're adding pace, you're adding more scoring, you're adding more effort, you're adding more just speed to the court, you're running up and down, and that's what they were doing. And look, in the Nuggets, again, at one point in this game, I can see if I can find this number here, but they were dominating the Bulls. When Zach LaVine scored on a fast break to make it 80-75 in the third quarter, that was the Bulls' first fast break points of the game. It was 22-2, which is crazy. Like, even in a game in which, like, you're not playing great basketball, you're playing good basketball, to be outscored 22-0 at some point in the game and find a way to win is a stunning thing to see from the Chicago Bulls in this game. I can't believe, I almost thought that was a typo when they put the stat up there, that it was 22-2 when Zach LaVine made that bucket. I guess it was 22-20 when they showed the stat, or 22-0 when they showed the stat. It was like an all-time, graphic jinx and a positive for the Bulls. But the Nuggets had their way in the paint. But the Bulls in this game, their strategy was going to be, we're going to outshoot you. And it looked like for a long time it wasn't going to go well, but they shot the ball great as a team from the three-point line. They ended up shooting 45%, on the night, 24-53. You can't ask for much more than that. I mean, it's almost 50%. Like, that's going to keep you in a lot of basketball games. But when the other team, like the Nuggets, they struggled there. We saw Michael Porter Jr. had a really tough night, which obviously is a guy that's been heavily connected to the Bulls in these Zach LaVine rumors that have obviously quieted down a ton. But again, like Lonzo, when you talk about why teams want to acquire Bulls basketball players, I think the end of the game there is what you point to. Why the Denver Nuggets should want to trade for Zach LaVine, the end of the game there where, the Nuggets are hitting threes and he's responding 2 times. I mean, Jamal Murray hits a three, makes it a 3-point game with a bucket in the paint. Zach LaVine responds to get it back to 6. Michael Porter Jr. hits a 3 to get it back down to a 3-point game. And then Zach LaVine hits another 3 and it's back to 6. Like, that's the clutch playmaking that another team should be wanting to acquire. So I think that's what you saw from really Vuce, LaVine, and Lonzo tonight, is why they should be commodities for the rest of the league at the deadline. Like, why this rebuild, should be really, ready to get going. And tonight's just a great example of a frustration as a Bulls fan of why it can look like this on a night where, previous nights it's absolutely terrible. And look, they were very clearly, going to react in a very positive way to what they did in the previous game with Vuce, where Vuce barely took any shots. He had 12 shots immediately in this game. He was all over the place, putting up shots and being super involved in the offense, which you need him to be. Like, we've known that all season, but he had 10 plus shots. I think it was in the first quarter. So he was the main guy that they were feeding things through. And yes, in the first quarter, like, you're only down by 3 points, but if he's not going like he was, we're just really having a great basketball game, this thing could have got out of hand really quick with how effectively and easily they were scoring. He, of course, adds another double-double to his total. Josh Giddey ends up with a double-double in this game. That's his 4th straight game with a double-double, so he's rolling as well. Still not getting like those high point totals, but I just don't think we should be expecting them from Giddey. I really thought we'd see more like weird double-doubles from him that were rebounds and assist-driven, but not tonight. He ends up with 10 assists, 4 rebounds, 12 points. So a good game from Josh Giddey, a really strong ending and overall game from Zach LaVine. And I think besides, I think Patrick Williams, like, yes, he went 1 for 5 from the 3-point line. His response again, which we're going to talk about more here in a second, and just the coaching that Billy Donovan seems like they finally reacted to as a unit in a really positive way. He had a good game. I think the best game of the night still goes to Lonzo Ball. He carried the tempo of this team at the end. The missed steal again that he had where he almost wrecked the defense or wrecked the offense for the Denver Nuggets, but did make things more chaotic. A bunch of just really positive things from the guys that are probably short-lived members now of the Chicago Bulls, but a good win, a fun win. Won't have a lot of these fun wins probably much of the season at this point, but you beat the Denver Nuggets 129-121. You moved to 20-27 on the season. So a good victory for the Bulls tonight. Real coaching. That's what we saw in this game. Patrick Williams moved to the bench. He responds. If you caught as I was getting the graphics ready up, caught the post-game interview, a lot of missed dump buttons from the producer. Got an MF in there, a couple other cuss words, as Jalen Smith was very, very excited for the game that Patrick Williams had tonight. And I think Bulls fans should feel, after the last couple games, we're going to take a victory lap for at least one night of Patrick Williams, because I like the response that he had in this game. So we'll get into that next here on the Locked On Bulls postcast and the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long, and you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, so Patrick Williams is benched to start this game. He's not out there. We get the report from Casey Johnson, and we hear from Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan is asked before the game, basically, why is Patrick Williams being held to a different standard than guys like Modest Buzelis, who, when they struggle, or Julian Phillips, who, I don't know, probably should be in concussion protocol for hitting his head on the backboard in this game tonight. Wild, the jumps that guy has. But Patrick Williams is benched, and he's going to come off the bench in this game. And I'm fascinated by this decision because, like Billy Donovan was asked, why is there a double standard? He basically was like, it's matchups, all these things, like what he's done in the league, everything. But look, this is a guy who just scored 2 points and basically said I'm him after the last game. But he comes off the bench, and he's much better in this game. He is looking much more confident, where he's 5 for 12 from the field, 1 for 5 from the three-point line, 11 points, so it's not like he put up some monster numbers, but when you look at these runs, Billy Donovan, I really think that this is a good coaching decision to punish players when they're not playing well, to hold everyone to a same level of standard. I think it's corny, it's a cheesy reference. I get that already, but you think back to what you've heard and what we've heard about Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, that Tom Brady would say it didn't matter that he's Tom Brady. He would get chewed out by Bill Belichick in meetings like everybody else. Gronk would say the same thing. Edelman, all of them. Tom Brady would get crushed by Bill Belichick if he made bonehead decisions. So for Patrick Williams to kind of skate by, it's questionable. It's questionable why you would allow that to happen as the coach of the Bulls. Why would you not hold him to the same standard when you're trying to implement a culture idea on this team, even though reportedly from Joe Cowley, every single player on the Bulls is available for trade with the exception of Modest Buzelis, which, that doesn't surprise me. But he makes the decision to bench him, which I think is a great move. I also think it's a great move for Patrick Williams and for Billy Donovan that after he has a good game and he's playing in the style of basketball that you want him to play with the effort that you're doing against the Nuggets here, that in the fourth quarter at the end of the game, you leave Patrick Williams in there. It's not just a matchup thing. It's clear he was rewarded for his effort and play in the game. That's good coaching. That is just coaching 101, of anything. It doesn't matter if you've only played high school sports, you've played college sports. Hell, if you've played pros, in any capacity. If you play well, you should be rewarded. And I think that that's something that Billy Donovan saw tonight. Now, would I immediately put him back into the starting lineup? No, my answer would be, not to be a total hypocrite of myself here. I liked what we saw from Patrick Williams coming off the bench. He's a big reason why, not obviously the only reason, but you outscored the Nuggets 41-10. Your bench unit was very strong in this game. So if I'm Billy Donovan, well, maybe we found something, because my guess is Patrick Williams is going to be on this team after the February 6th trade deadline. That while we're all thinking Super Bowl, the trade deadline's going to happen the Thursday or Friday before, whatever that is. So I'm fine with leaving Patrick on the bench and coming off the bench like they did tonight. I would be curious what that looks like another game, because I think it will just continue to tell you about a guy that's under contract, that's probably going to be hard to trade, if not nearly impossible to trade, like what he can do. Zach, you're asked, who do you realistically think gets traded at the deadline? I think LaVine, Vuce, and Lonzo all get moved at the deadline. I do. I think that this will be one of the last games we see this core group of guys together, probably for the better for the future of the Bulls, because again, like, this is why I talk this game, honestly, this is a game that, like, if they stayed together for another year, these are the games that, like, in my mind as a terrible fan, basically, I would talk myself into the Bulls being better than they're actually going to be, is that you have performances like this against the Denver Nuggets. I think all three of those guys get moved. The sneaky one I would keep an eye on, who was good in this game again tonight. I've really enjoyed watching him. He wasn't a great player for the Bulls, but he had some good moments, was Jalen Smith. That's another player where, like, kind of keeping my eye on him of, like, what it's going to be. He's going to also show up in the next segment, worst moments of the game. Don't love getting a tech in a single-digit lead. Not a great thing to do. He was right. I give him, like, he was right about the call that was made on the court. But when you get a tech in it and then puts the Nuggets only down by 7 and they get the ball back, don't love that, because that would have been, like, public enemy number one for this loss, I think, if things would have unraveled from that point. But Jalen Smith would be the other one that I would say, like, you could see a team, looking for his shooting ability from the outside as a backup player for a playoff team. That would make a lot of sense. So those are kind of the four guys that I'm keeping my eyes on the most as we get close to the trade deadline here. But for tonight, at least they played well as a unit today. And again, like, I think watching the Nuggets, kind of up close and personal, obviously, with this game, even though, this Brown kid is awesome, or was awesome tonight. I don't know if he's this good all the time, but he could get anything he wanted anywhere on the court in this game. Russell Westbrook's playing actually good basketball again with them, but I still, like, I did finish watching this game and I was like, yeah, like, I think they should probably revisit the Zach LaVine thing, because Zach LaVine with Nikola Jokic would be nasty. And you think about those full court passes that they were doing tonight. Jokic had the one where Io nearly grabbed it, and he got down there in time. The Nuggets still scored, but that was a really good effort play from Io, who, like, obviously that's never in question with him. Oh, I would not trade Io either. Besides, I know the report from Joe Cowley said everyone besides Modest is available. I wouldn't move Io Dosunmu. I don't know, like, what if the Bulls are, like, let's say in, like, 3 or 4 years they're like a real legit NBA team. I don't know, like, what his role is on that team, but until you get there, that's someone I wouldn't move on from. Like, local, like, obviously, like, local kid, like U of I, like, I wouldn't move on from Io. So he's really the only other one for me that I look at the deadline and I'm like, I would be bummed out if Io was traded. And obviously, like I said, like, obviously Modest Buzelis is going nowhere anytime soon. So we'll see what happens. Just a couple games left. What was it, like 3 games left, I think, 4 games until the trade deadline. So it'll be here before we know it. But for tonight, a good win over the Nuggets, 129-121. Patrick Williams responds after being benched. And again, Billy Donovan, not just that move, but whatever was said, the players' decisions themselves to, even when Vuce is not going scorched earth in this game, keeping him actively involved in the offense from the very beginning to the very end is something that we've been asking for far too often as fans of this team, wanting to see the Bulls win some games still, if you're still in that camp. Even when early on the season, we wanted them to win games, they would still too far often go away from Vuce. Really, the worst part about tonight's game, besides, like, the individual moments from this one, I would say, would definitely be the turnovers. The Bulls were still super reckless with the ball tonight. They ended up with 17 turnovers. Now, there was 15 for the Nuggets, so they did do their job defensively on the other end by taking advantage of opportunities. But early on, it looked like when the Nuggets were kind of pulling away, it was the turnovers that were leading to a lot of it. That's just Bulls basketball at this point, right? We're just kind of used to that at this point of the season, where they're just going to turn the ball over a ton. But best and worst moments of the game, there's actually quite a few I think we can hit on of each. We'll do that next year, recapping the Bulls-Nuggets game, 129-121 win over the Nuggets. The Bulls move to 20-27 on the season. So we'll wrap up the show with that next year on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. All right, best and worst moments of the game versus the Denver Nuggets. I don't know which category to put this in, so I'm going to put this in best. I'm going to put this in best just because he didn't get hurt. And the play was wild. We're going to revisit the Julian Phillips hitting his head on the backboard. That play was crazy. I knew he could jump. I didn't realize he could jump that high. Glad he didn't get hurt. Glad he stayed in the game at that point. But didn't realize that he had those hops on him. Some of the other moments from tonight's game, the more serious moments in this one, I think the early part where we could tell with Lonzo that he was going to be a key factor in this game was he had Vuce broke to the rim. Lonzo found him easily. Vuce missed the layup, but he got the offensive rebound, put it back in. And then on the next possession, Lonzo took another three, or made his first three of the game there in the first quarter. So that to me was right away, okay, Lonzo's going to be actively involved in this game, continuing to put it, have good moments. Also, we will take comments as well for this one too, like we always do. Zach says modest crossover dunk play of the night. Agree. I don't know what the odds on FanDuel are. Honestly, I don't even know if they let you bet on the slam dunk contest anymore. I'm assuming they still do. I sneaky like modest in this dunk contest. I know the McClung kid, the G Leaguer or whatever that's going to be in the dunk contest is back, but I am actually. Modest being in the dunk contest means I'm going to watch it for the first time in 3 or 4 years, because it's really become a part of the it's kind of just been ruined in the NBA. But now that Modest is involved, I'm actually going to watch the slam dunk contest just to see what this kid has in his bag. The Bulls continue to put stuff out on social media with him of what he's doing pregame, and obviously we're seeing what he does during the games, not just the dunks, but I do think that we will see a handful of moves for them. I'm going to pull this up here just to double check. No offense to Zach, because that's my guy here in the chat, but Zach LaVine, what's going on with Zach LaVine here as we do this show live? From Casey Johnson, Zach LaVine is going to be out for a few games. It's a personal reason, so he's not hurt. I'm having a baby. Congrats, Zach. Was this Zach LaVine's last game as a Bull? I'm going to guess the answer to that's yes. That Zach LaVine, they're having their second baby, so congrats. So this might have been officially the end of the Zach LaVine era. Maybe we'll get one more, but based on where the trade deadline's at, being next week, gonna miss a couple games because they're having a baby, I probably would guess that this is a good way to go out and will end Zach LaVine's tenure as a member of the Chicago Bulls. That unless for some reason he's not traded, that with him missing, probably 2 to 3 games, I would guess here, probably 2 at minimum for the Bulls, that we may not see Zach LaVine ever wear a Bulls uniform again. And frankly, too, at this point where you're so close to the deadline, probably the wise decision is to sit him no matter what, just because you want to see, you don't want him to get hurt, obviously. Even I'm kind of wondering with Lonzo Ball, if they put some kids' gloves on him over the next couple days as they get closer to the deadline, if they're going to move him. But yeah, so Zach LaVine's going to miss the next few games per Billy Donovan because him and his wife are having a baby, their second baby. So congrats to them. But yeah, this might be officially the end of the Zach LaVine era. One other note I missed earlier here as I'm looking at Casey Johnson's tweets here, or X posts, whatever they're called now. Bulls went 24-53. That's one shy of their franchise record for most threes made in a game. It tied their high as a franchise. So not only did they shoot 45%, but that's an incredible amount considering how many times the Bulls have taken 50-plus threes this season. But so the Bulls do that as well in this game. Other moments, again, just the end sequence there for Zach LaVine. Best moment of the game, probably besides because I agree with Zach here, the modest dunk, but the 2 threes in response to a 2 from Jamal Murray and then a 3 from Michael Porter Jr. at the end of the game to keep this thing, in arm's length and to not let the Denver Nuggets come back and take the victory in this one. Really the best ending of Zach LaVine's potential tenure that you could have, but just huge clutch threes. I mean, whether they're wide open like the first one was, or the step back three like the second three was for LaVine, just he was kind of getting anything he wanted to on the court tonight. Worst moments, still, even though it didn't affect them, being outscored at one point in this game, 22-2 in fast break points is a brutal stat for the Bulls. It ended up being 30-15, so that's a positive where they closed that gap. So that means they outscored the Nuggets 15-8 in fast break points the remainder of the game. So that's a huge reason why they also came back. And again, Patrick Williams, his performance off the bench, a really strong night for him after being removed from the starting lineup, was really something the Bulls, I think, desperately needed to see from him, because he might be back in the rotation after the deadline. But the reality is that, if Vuce, LaVine, Lonzo are traded, and your starting lineup is, assuming Kobe White's healthy, let's assume that here, Kobe White, Ayo, Josh Giddey, Patrick Williams, Jalen Smith, he is probably the best player on the court still, like besides Kobe White. But like, you're gonna need him to score if you're gonna try to win basketball games. You're desperately gonna need him. So maybe that will be a good role for him once these guys are off the team, and he can kind of just be overall more involved. But the other part of Patrick Williams wasn't just the scoring. He ended up with, I think it was officially with 8 rebounds on tonight, something that Billy Donovan has crushed him for. 8 rebounds on the night. So to see that performance from him, I think is why he was on the court at the end of the game. It wasn't just the scoring, it was the response of being active on the glass. So this was a fun Bulls win in what might be the official end of the era, especially with that Zach LaVine news we just got as we were wrapping up the show here, that he will miss the next couple games because of the birth of their second child. So maybe the Zach LaVine era is over. Make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. We'll be here still after the next show. But also the Locked On Bulls YouTube channel, where they're going to be breaking down everything as the trade deadline approaches, who's in, who's out, where all the rumors that are going on. They're doing great work daily on that YouTube channel. And also our audio and their audio is all available on the Locked On Bulls audio feed, Amazon, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find it. So subscribe to all those things because we're here. So after every single Bulls game, after every single Bears game, we were here. Notre Dame, once we started about halfway through the season, and we'll be here throughout the entire 2025 Cubs season with both Kyle Tucker and Ryan Presley, now a member of the Cubs. So that'll do it for this episode of the Locked On Bulls Postcast. My name is Joe George. Talk to you next time, and peace.